All right, everybody. Today we are going to be taking a look at population distribution. Now, population distribution and population density are two different things. So this is a population density map because it shows how many people live within a square mile. So in other words, population density is focused on, are there a lot of people living close to each other or are they spread out? Okay? So that's population density. How many people live within 1 square mile? What we're going to focus on today is population distribution. Where do people live? We're not so much concerned with how many, but where's the location? So in other words, do a majority of people live in the eastern part of the country? Do a majority of people live in the northern part of the country? Do a majority of people live in the western part of the country? Do a majority of people live in the southern part of the country? Okay, so population distribution, that's what we're going to focus on. We may mention a little bit about population density, which again is how many people live within a square mile. So by the way, urban areas, meaning cities, they're going to have higher density, more people close together than if you're out in the rural areas, out in the countryside, where you're going to have less people together, okay? So again, population density, how many people live within 1 square mile. Population distribution, which is what we're focused on, where do people live? Now we're going to be focusing on 3 countries: Mexico, Brazil, I had to think about that for a second, almost forgot, Brazil and Cuba. So let's take a look. First is Mexico. So if we take a look at this map, and you notice you got a bunch of cities in Mexico, and there's the capital, Mexico City. If I said just based off of this map, you have nothing else that you can look at, just based off of this map, where do you think a majority of people live? Well, if I'm looking at this map, I'm seeing that, okay, there's a capital, Mexico City, but I'm also noticing that, man, here's all these cities right around Mexico City as well. I've got a few, now by the way, most of these, this is a map that's focusing mostly on state capitals, because if you break Mexico down, Mexico has states that it's broken down into. So even though there's mostly state capitals, I'm still not seeing as many state capitals here, but I'm seeing a lot of state capitals, which are cities, here, and then the capital of the country, Mexico City, is right here. So if you said, just based off this map, oh, you know what? I think a majority of people live in the central part of Mexico. Well, you'd be correct. And in fact, 25% of Mexico's entire population, so 1/4 of Mexico's entire population, lives either in Mexico City or right around Mexico City. Because the thing about it, 1/4 of the population is connected to one city, which happens to be the capital. All right, that's amazing. So the majority of Mexico's population is distributed, so the population distribution is towards the central part of Mexico. Now, here's the question that we have to ask. This is what we have to ask ourselves. Why? All right, here's something about statistics, meaning, I'm assuming we all know about statistics, meaning, hey, here's a number that is connected to, in the case of social studies, populations and demographics, all right? Well, the population is this number. The population lives over here. Well, we could say that, which is true, by the way. So we could say, all right, 25% of Mexico's population lives around Mexico City or Mexico. But we have to ask ourselves a question. This is important with statistics. Why? Why does 25% of Mexico's population live in or around one particular city? Right? So context is always important. We need to know the why. Why is this number what it is? Context would also talk about how did we get to this number, right? But for today, we're focusing more on the why for Mexico. So I want you to think about that. Why do you think that 25% of Mexico's population is connected to one city and the majority distribution is in the center? All right, well, hopefully, if you're thinking about the city, what might the city have that maybe the rural areas out here in the desert? So if we were to throw up another map, we'd be able to see that northern Mexico, a lot of desert. All right, southern Mexico, just it's a little bit smaller, right? A lot easier to live here, but Mexico City is right here, the capital. So why? Why would people move to urban areas? Why would people move to Mexico City? Well, hopefully, you might say jobs. Right? Jobs are a huge reason why people tend to move from rural areas to urban areas. A lot of times there's more jobs, there's a better chance of getting a job, which means that you can make money and feed your family. And also, in cities, cities are where you tend to find manufacturing. If you remember manufacturing, we've talked about this before. Manufacturing is taking a raw good and turning it into a good that is usable. And remember, we use the example, a cotton field. You don't go to a cotton field and, oh, hey, look, here's a t-shirt growing. All right? Oh, no. You have to take the cotton, process it, and turn it into that shirt. All right? So manufacturing, taking the raw good, that cotton ball with all the seeds, and turning it into a usable good. So for Mexico City, this is where you have the chance for more jobs. You're going to have more jobs than out here in rural Mexico. So you have jobs and you have manufacturing. Manufacturing, again, is huge in Mexico City. So keep that in mind. Manufacturing for Mexico City, also, number one reason a lot of people move, jobs. There's more jobs available in urban areas, it tends to be, than out in rural areas. All right? So I'm going kind of fast, only because I know our time is limited. I'm going to try to keep this under 20 minutes. All right. Let's take a look at Brazil. Population distribution. Now, this is going to be a little bit harder to see, so I'm going to go ahead, pick up the camera, and try not to make it shaky. All right, so hopefully we can see a little bit. Now, there's Brazil. Now, here's what I want you to notice. Notice where most of the cities are located in Brazil. They are located along the coast. So look at the coastal areas. We're looking at the east coast of Brazil, going down into the southern part of Brazil. Now, if I were to turn a little bit, you got maybe two kind of not very large cities out in the northwest part of Brazil, but most of the cities are going to be towards the east. So here's the northeast going down the east coast to the south. So we could say, oh, okay, you know what? Population distribution for Mexico City is going to be along the coast. And that is true. 80% of Mexico's population actually lives along the coast. Right, hold on one second. Ta-da, we're back, and now the camera's straight. Yay! All right, so the East Coast, we have our cities along the East Coast and in the South. 80% of Brazil's population lives within 100 miles of the coast. All right, we can just say 80% of Brazil's population lives along the coast. Now, here's the question. That's just a number. That's really nice. Why? I want you to think about that for a second. Why is it that 80% of Brazil's population lives along the coast? Now, I hope that you are looking at your maps, your physical map of Brazil, and going, oh, wait a second. I remember here in the Northwest is a giant rainforest. And rainforests are very beautiful, but you can't really have a lot of people living in a rainforest. It's not great to build. You're not going to be able to build big cities in a rainforest. You're not going to be able to have a lot of people in a rainforest. Also, rainforests are not known for having the greatest soil in the world either. So if you have a giant rainforest here in the Northwest, most people are going to gravitate to the east where they can actually live and the population can grow. Also, you have access to water, Caribbean Sea, Atlantic Ocean. Remember, Amazon River flows and empties into the Caribbean Sea, so you have all these rivers that are eventually going to flow out anyway. So you have fresh water that's going to flow in this area. Over here, down in southern Brazil especially, you've got grasslands that are great for farming. Cattle raising is huge in Brazil. So you got cattle raising down here in the south. You've got rivers that are going to flow and eventually give people fresh water. And you have access to the ocean. So most people, 80% of Brazil's population lives along the coast. And we know why now. So think about it. Mexico, we talked about 25% of the people living around Mexico City Why? There's more jobs available in the urban areas than out in the rural desert areas. 80% of Brazil's population lives along the coast. Why? Because you can actually grow. You can actually grow your population out here, and you have access to fresh water, and you're not stuck in a rainforest. That's the why. That's the context to the number. So always remember, statistics are useless unless you have the context. Why does that number happen? Why does that number exist? Okay? Here we go. Third one, moving a little bit fast. And by the way, you can see we got our green rainforest here. It's a lot easier to move out this way. Oh, by the way, I'd like to say thank you to worldatlas.com and also to Encyclopedia Britannica is going to be our next map. So thank you to them as well. They have been awesome. Also thank you to Nations Online Project, because this is where we get all these maps from, and it's amazing to actually have these maps available. All right, Cuba. Did you guys like that nice little advertisement intro? And no, I did not get paid for that. All right, Cuba. So we're looking at Cuba. Most small islands, the majority of people tend to live in urban areas, because when you are dealing with a small island, you don't have that much room. That doesn't mean that there aren't rural areas. There are always rural areas. I mean, unless you're talking about Singapore, all right? Singapore is not an island, but Singapore is unique. But when we're talking about islands, there's not that much room, so most people are going to gravitate towards the city. And why are they going to gravitate towards the city? Because the city has more, hopefully you said jobs, because that is correct. The city has more jobs available, therefore people are able to make money, versus the rural areas, and especially, as I said, on an island, and a small island, you're out of land. You don't have that much land space. So trying to just stay in rural areas are not always going to work for a lot of people. So in Cuba, the majority of people live in urban areas. By the way, what's the capital of Cuba? Hopefully you said Havana. That would be correct. So the majority of people in Cuba tend to live in urban areas. All right. That is the end of population distribution. So I want you to remember, Mexico City, here's our number. So these are numbers that we can write down. 25% of Mexico's population lives in or around Mexico City. The majority of their population lives in central Mexico. Why do they live there? Because there's more access to jobs in the urban areas than if you stay out in the rural areas. Okay? Brazil. 80% of Brazil's population lives along the coast. Why? Because there's a giant rainforest in northwest Brazil. So people are going to live along the coast where they have access to the ocean and to be able to travel. They also have room to be able to grow and their population to grow. And the fresh water, the rivers, eventually a lot of them are flowing towards the east anyway. So they have access to fresh drinking water. And they have croplands in the south, which are great for raising cattle. Cuba. Cuba's an island, so they have a limited amount of land. So the majority of the population are going to live in urban areas. Why? Because there's more access to jobs. Whereas being out in rural areas, there's land, but there's not a lot of land because it's a small island. So your better chance of being successful is moving into the urban areas. All right? So I hope that makes sense. Remember, population distribution is always important. It tells us where people live, but we have to always ask ourselves the question, why? Why does the majority of people live in one area but not another? Or why would people change? Be in one area for a while and then move to another. There's always a reason. Okay? Now, here is your assignment. You're going to have a bunch of assignments today. This is your first assignment. We pretty much know by now, land and climate are two of the major reasons that people move. All right? So, or people will live in a certain area. That mountain's over there. We can't really live there. Let's live in this valley. Or, this is a desert climate. Let's live in a climate that's more suitable for us. So we all know that. So your assignment is this. I want you, part of it is your opinion. I want you to give me your top 5 reasons, one being the best, down to 5. I want you to give me your top 5 reasons that you would move to a certain place, all right, or a certain area. I'm not talking about moving in Brazil or Cuba. I'm not talking about that. But I want you to give me your top 5 reasons why you would move to a certain area. And I want you to tell me your reason for moving, or your reason for those top 5. So you cannot use land and you cannot use climate, because those two things we already know. So your top 5 cannot be land or climate. You have to pick other reasons. But what would be your top 5 reasons to move to one area? And once you have your top 5, so if I came up with the top 5, I would need to, after I put my top 5, let me explain. I want you to explain why you picked, whatever your number 1 reason was, why did you pick that reason? Why was that reason important to you? Okay? So I hope that makes sense. Give me your top 5 reasons that you would move to a certain area. There cannot be land or climate. Land or climate cannot be in it. And I want you underneath to type up the number 1 reason. Why was that your number 1 reason? Why did you feel that that was the most important? Okay? If you have any questions, if you're confused about anything, let me know. I'll be in conference 2:35 to 3:25. Hey, and we did it in under 20 minutes. Woo! All right. Take care, guys. Make sure you do that assignment. There are other assignments with the other videos, so make sure you're paying attention to all the videos. Make sure you do your vocabulary quiz too. All right? Take care, guys.